not exactly hidden. Koga slowly moves through the kata with both children behind him moving to mimic him. His physical eyes are closed, but he can see them through the forest. The basic Aikido helps limber up the two and gives them a martial art based around escaping grabs and delivering soft takedowns. It also helps focus the mind properly. Being a way to focus is the more important trait. He could almost hear them reaching out to the forest as they pushed outwards. They were getting very, very close. Both Jeth and Mux were just maybe 1 or 2 revelations away from actually reaching out properly. They still had their guards up, even Mux, who really wanted this. The concept of just emptying your head and reaching out was a bit much, hence the exercise and katas, practical in many ways and hopefully something that would speed up their training. Sure, having a home away from home for these kids was part of this whole village plan, but he wanted to see how quickly he could train someone up without pushing them too hard. Find that sweet spot where pushing them forward, leading them onwards, and letting them grow came together to form a perfect whole. There's also the fact he's very curious as to what the first sorcerers from this village would do with their lives. With the patience they were teaching, it was unlikely to be revenge. With the practical skills and pragmatic attitude they were encouraging, they could go just about anywhere, and with the sheer power they would have at their disposal, they could do anything. So what does a freshly minted sorcerer do with himself? The ones in the ancient past had wars to fight or vengeance to take. But what is a newborn sorcerer in peace? The shifting of the leaves confirms that the forest itself is just as curious. There is another shift moments later, and he opens his eyes. The blurs in the distance focus clearly into the gorgeous tapestry of growing life that has decided to be family, partner, brother, kami. There was something powerful that he simply didn't have words for. Where the forest ended and the sorcerer began was a difficult thing to quantify. But it was there, and it was one with him. Soon to be one with these children as well, and perhaps whatever the stranger in the woods has come here for. "Excuse me a minute, boys. Something has come up," Koga says with a smile. "Keep practicing and take your time. Speed comes with experience." "All right, Sensei Koga," Jeth says as Mux nods happily. "Very good. I'll be back shortly," he says calmly, and Wood walks away, appearing on the branches above the stranger in the forest. And to the forest she is strange indeed. The stranger has a large, serpentine body with a fin ready to stretch up into a paddle, gigantic gills along the side, and 2 immensely powerful legs. Yet instead of completing into a monster, the remainder of the body splits into many people, 8 to be exact. All of them women, all of them nervous, and most baffling of all, to the forest connected in more than body. They are connected in mind as well. 1 person, 8 bodies, and yet 1 body. Koga knows it is a Lydris. He has seen them before, but the forest has seen them only rarely and is not fully at ease with her presence, a trait it shows by edging its root and trunk away from her ever so and weaving the leaves above together all the tighter. Of course, a forest leaning away from you as the lights go out to leave you to nothing but the groaning wood in the darkness is a very scary thing. The poor woman is struggling not to hyperventilate in her nervousness. The fact she's still following the trail in spite of her clear fear and discomfort tells him that this is very important to her at least. He drops down soundlessly and reaches into a pocket. He withdraws something he made with the boys as an example and experiment that they had given him at the end. A small oil lamp that uses rendered paratak fat for oil. It was a cup with a handle and a lid with a single hole for the wick. Primitive and poorly made, but a gift he treasured for its thoughtfulness. A spark of axiom, and he lights the lamp. It's the least intrusive way he can think of to announce his presence. Of course, even the small flame stands out like a beacon in the dark, and at least 3 of the 8 bodies turn to look at him. Good afternoon, ma'am. What's someone like you doing in the dark forest of all places? He asks after a moment, and she stares at him. Are you doing this? She asks, squirming a little to face him fully. No, I'm not, Koga says simply. Could you answer my question, please? Why are you here? Oh yes, sorry, she says, and an upper body hands him a picture. It shows a teenage Apuk boy looking exasperated as her many bodies hug him from all sides. Clearly, he's in the too cool for school stage. This is my son, Darechar. Char. That name is familiar, Koga says, trying to place where he heard it. He's positive that Vernon mentioned it, and a face is forming in his mind in spite of the fact that there's no way he could have met the man. He's the son of Bryn Char, a powerful sorcerer and business owner. He donated sperm some years ago, and I was blessed. She explains, and Koga nods. Now that he knows it's a sorcerer, he simply asks the forest, and it finishes the image it was slowly feeding him. Ah, yes, now I see it. But you implied you don't know Bryn Char. I don't, however he's a sorcerer as well. The forest knows him and is willing to tell me, Koga says before handing back the picture. He has his father's species and build, but he has your nose and eyes. Thank you. Anyways, can we talk somewhere not so closed in and angry? She asks, and Koga smiles. Of course, take my hand, please, he says, and she grabs on with 5 hands on his one, and he brings her along with a wood walk. What? How? What was that? What was that? She demands, thrashing a bit. Thankfully, they're at the edge, and the massive tail cracks a large stone, but doesn't do any further damage. Sorcery, ma'am! Sorcery! Koga says. Now, this is our little village, which is what's at the end of the path you were on. Oh, okay then. So why were you heading here? Koga asks as Jeth and Muck start sneaking up and peer at the things going in front of them. Much more skilled are several of the village men that are barely visible in the trees high above as they watch the events unfolding below them. It's my son. He needs something more than a father he barely knows to connect him to his culture. Bryn Char brought it up to me, and my dare wants to try. But I want to see for myself. What are you doing here? Will my son be safe, and will he... Are those children? She asks, leaning around Koga and stares at Jeth and Mux. Jeth Urla and Mux Moro are 2 first sorcerer apprentices, Koga says, and she looks confused. Perhaps we could start with your name, madam. I'm Brenda Crushclaw, mother of Darechar Crushclaw. I'm here to see if this place can help my son. I've done everything I can to help him, but there's something I'm missing. His father isn't married to me, and while he tries to make time for him, he just doesn't have the same interests as my son, and they have trouble connecting. Does that include sorcery? If Darechar has no interest in sorcery, then sending him here will be an exercise in frustration on all sides, Koga says. A student who doesn't want to learn cannot be taught. Teaching is a two-way street. It's the only thing he has in common with his father, but I live off-world and I didn't want to just throw my son into the wilderness. If there's a way he can just have training, then surely it won't be so bad, Brenda says, and Koga nods. We are trying to streamline things as best as we can, but even then people work at their own pace in the end. Oh, so it might take 10 years for him to learn? It takes as long as it takes in the end, Koga says, and she seems to deflate. Ma'am, to be a sorcerer, you need a mindset where you're willing to offer everything to the forest and accept it, even if you get nothing back. You need to be able to honestly reach out for help and reach out to it. No barriers, no hesitation. If you flinch back, then so does the forest. Guard yourself from it, and it guards itself from you. Most of the training we do here is to slowly bring the student around to opening themselves up. The reason myself and the other men were able to become sorcerers so quickly is that we've all gone through a brutal training where if we want to empty ourselves and reach out, then we can. And the training? To get the students there without potentially breaking them. Our training on Earth had only a 1 in 20 success rate, and after that it only got harder, Koga says before grinning. I was never more thankful for my grandfather's training, as it helped discipline me for the sheer bone-cracking effort and mind-numbing studying that had to be done. I see. And if I have my son brought here, what can be expected of him? Exercise, hunting, martial training, survival training, philosophy and pharmaceutical studies, among many others, to say nothing of the sorcery itself. I see. So I should bring him here. That's for you to decide, but you should know that after he takes the first step, which can take seconds, then there's no force on or off this world that can force him out of the forests. If he wants to stay in here, then he's staying, Koga says, and Brenda looks conflicted. You can't hide him from the world forever, a new voice asks as the lithe and willowy form of Brynchar appears cresting the hill and is followed by Darechar looking around in shock. It's been far too long since I last felt the forest beneath my feet. This place is weird. I mean, I heard about a village being made, but what is this place? Darechar asks. Unlike his father, he's dressed in heavy boots and thick protective clothing. Yes, this is a place to live when sorcerers are being trained or if they simply want to be out of normal society. We're mostly disconnected here. No electronic mail, no communications from the outside with the exception of emergencies. It's just you, us, and the forest. There's a lot to learn, Koga says, and Brynchar nods as he walks a bit towards the village. Brenda walks up close to Darechar as the boy's father examines the place. I would have adored to have a place such as this when I was in the forest the first time. Granted, I was a petulant little brat back then and would have stomped away in frustration of more rules. But it would have been nice. I would have eventually come around, Brynchar says as he takes a deep breath and a root rises up from the ground with him riding upon it to overlook the area. It bends over and deposits him right nearby Koga as he has a frown on his face. Where is Vernon? I haven't seen him. He's with his wife. They spend the vast majority of their time with each other in many, many different ways, Koga says with a roll of his eyes. You humans are a very passionate species. Brynchar notes and Koga shrugs. You teach more than just the sorcerous arts, right? Something called ninjutsu? Somewhat. Actual, ancient ninjutsu is effectively lost, but my grandfather taught me some scraps of it. Most of it is trickery, a survival-focused mindset and ways to focus the body and mind, but it can be very useful in the right circumstances. I've already figured out how to make some very deadly poisons with things found all over the forest. I'm more than capable of tracking down almost anything living here, and few things pass without my noticing them, even without the forest helping me. Can you teach that? Brynchar asks, and Koga's briefly surprised but looks out of focus for a moment. I think so, but a lot is my own relearning. I let too much go, and there's all sorts of small pieces I just never understood when I was younger, Koga says. Still, it's ironic. I remember when my grandfather bemoaned how the world was changing so much and there was just no room anywhere for ninjas. Go figure it's off-world that there would be so much room for them. Bitter irony, Dale says, woodwalking right nearby him. I was wondering when you would all come down, Brynchar notes. To be fair, most of the guys are out in the forest, and by the time we realized that Koga wasn't dragging her here for us all to gang up on, we were already getting comfy up in the trees. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it, Dale says, and Koga sighs in frustration.